The story I want to tell you today took place in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Kuala Lumpur is a populous city with many famous tourist attractions such as the Petronas Twin Towers, Thien Hau Temple, the Klang River, and Chinatown. The main character of the story is named Emily Johnson. She was born in 1978 in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, to American parents who had settled there. At the time of the incident, she was only 9 years old. Emily and her family lived on Jalan Street in northern Kuala Lumpur. Most of the houses on both sides of the street were shops with 2 to 3 story structures, the ground floor used as a store and the upper floors for living. Emily's house was a 2-story shop house. Her family consisted of 8 people. Besides her parents, she had 5 siblings and was the second oldest child in the family. Her parents ran a bakute shop on the ground floor. Bakute is one of the traditional dishes loved by Malaysians, with pork ribs as the main ingredient, simmered in a special broth made from herbs and spices. At that time, Emily was a 3rd-grade student at Changhua Elementary School. She was an excellent student with good conduct, quiet, obedient, and sensible. She had an older brother named Michael, who was 1 year older than her. One morning, both siblings left home together to buy breakfast for the whole family. On the way, Michael needed to use the restroom, so he temporarily ran back home, leaving Emily alone waiting. However, no one could have imagined that during that time, an evil hand would reach the little girl, making anyone who heard about it feel heartbroken. What happened on that day? Next, we will go back in time to April 12, 1987. April 12, 1987 was a rainy Sunday at the end of April with hot and humid weather. At 8:30 a.m., Emily's family opened their shop. Her father, John Johnson, 37 years old, was preparing things to welcome customers. Her mother, Sarah Johnson, 38 years old, was also helping. Since the family hadn't had breakfast yet, the mother took out some money and gave it to her eldest son, Michael, asking him to take his sister Emily to a nearby shop to buy breakfast for the whole family. Then Michael held his sister's hand and happily left the house. The happiness of children is often as simple as that. A moment later, when the 2 siblings arrived at the bakery at the end of the street, they found it closed. Not knowing if the shop would open that day, they didn't want to return empty-handed, so they decided to try their luck at a nearby market. They turned back and walked towards the market. On the way, they passed Jalan Tuanku Abdul Rahman Street. At that time, Michael suddenly felt uncomfortable in his stomach and needed to run home to use the bathroom urgently. He told his sister to stand still where she was and wait for him to come back, telling her not to go anywhere. After saying that, the brother ran straight home while Emily stood waiting. The road was only 200 meters away from their house. 10 minutes later, when Michael returned to the same spot, he couldn't find his sister anywhere. He searched and shouted around, calling her name, but received no response. Not knowing where his sister had gone, he felt worried, so he ran home to tell his parents what happened. After learning about the situation, both parents stopped what they were doing and ran together to the location to find their daughter. Around the area on both sides of the road were mainly abandoned houses, with only a few open shops. There weren't many pedestrians or vehicles passing by. After questioning everyone around, people said they hadn't seen any 9-year-old girl nearby. The family searched every nook and cranny, but to no avail. Emily always behaved well and was obedient. She would never go somewhere else without notifying her brother unless someone had taken her away. Thinking of this, her parents became even more worried. Some kind-hearted neighbors in the neighborhood, after learning about the incident, also joined in and helped search. The search lasted for more than 2 hours but still yielded no results. As time passed, many people felt that the girl may have been taken away by someone, with little hope of finding her. However, her parents didn't give up. They continued searching the streets near their home and some secluded places. In the afternoon, the couple went to a nearby empty house to search. This was an empty 3-story commercial building located east of Jalan Street, where their house was. Next to the building was a gas station. The mother pushed open the door of the empty house and entered, followed by her husband. In front of them was a long hallway. At the end of the hallway was a staircase leading to the second and third floors. When the mother pushed open the door next to the staircase, the scene before her eyes almost made her faint on the spot. She hoarsely called out her daughter's name, Emily. The father immediately ran to the room next to the staircase. Before their eyes was their daughter Emily, naked, lying on the ground. Her eyes were bulging, her neck was tightly wrapped with electrical wire, and her body was full of signs of violation. However, this wasn't the worst part. In her lower body was a 90 centimeters long wooden stick. The stick penetrated from bottom to top and stabbed straight into her heart. Moreover, there were 3 nails and a piece of iron on the wooden stick. The scene made the parents collapse on the spot. They cried in grief and carried their daughter to a nearby hospital for emergency treatment. But it was too late. The passing of the little girl caused immense pain and heartbreak for the entire family. They immediately reported to the Kuala Lumpur police and vowed to find the culprit who had harmed their daughter. After receiving the report, a large number of police quickly arrived at the scene, and the official investigation began. The crime scene was a desolate landscape with empty rooms containing some wood, electrical wires, and other abandoned construction materials. Such empty houses were often secret spots frequented by drug addicts. Due to many people coming and going after the incident, the crime scene had been damaged. The only thing the police could collect was some bloody footprints left at the scene. After comparing, those footprints matched the shoes of Emily's parents and some curious residents who had rushed to see. But these people were ruled out as suspects by the police after hearing their accounts of what happened when Emily went missing. The police also interrogated the staff working at the gas station next door, but obtained no clues. They then questioned residents and passers-by along the road from Emily's house to the crime scene, but found nothing. If this wasn't an accident, it's very likely that someone deliberately did it with the purpose of taking revenge. Emily's family was very well known on the street because their bak kut teh shop was delicious and had many loyal customers. The shop's promising future development prospects may have aroused jealousy in some competitors, so Emily may have been kidnapped and killed for revenge. However, after investigation, the police didn't find any suspects. On Monday, after the incident occurred, the forensic autopsy report was released, showing that the victim, Emily, had been attacked on her neck, lower body, chest, and other parts while she was still alive. All left some tooth marks. Those tooth marks were left by 8 people. This showed that Emily had been violated by at least 8 people. At that time, due to the backwardness of forensic science and technology, DNA of the culprits could not be extracted from the victim, and the crime scene had no surveillance cameras. Moreover, there were no witnesses, so solving the case was extremely difficult. News of the incident quickly spread throughout Kuala Lumpur. The public was extremely angry at the brutality of the perpetrators. People began to voluntarily investigate suspicious people around them. Once there was news, they would provide clues to the police. Everyone wanted to quickly find those disgusting criminals. According to some clues, the police linked the culprits to men who could speak Tamil. Tamil is widely used in South India, northeastern Sri Lanka, and in South Asia like Singapore. After investigation, the police arrested 3 suspects, all with prior criminal records. Among them, 1 suspect was fluent in Tamil, and the other 2 were regular customers of Emily's family's shop. To find out if those 3 were the culprits, the police invited dental experts to help take dental impressions of the 3 suspects. After comparing with the 8 tooth marks left on Emily's body, the results did not match. Therefore, the 3 suspects were released due to insufficient evidence. Since then, the investigation has been suspended, and the police have been under unprecedented pressure to solve the case. They even offered a reward of 10,000 ringgit, about 2,300 USD, for anyone with clues. Later, there were even about 100 people who participated in a protest calling for the police to quickly resolve the case and bring justice to Emily's family. They also called on the authorities to strengthen the management of street order and safety. Some people even launched charity sales to raise reward funds. The reward increased from the initial 10,000 to 20,000 ringgit. They even paid a high price to invite a psychic to the scene, hoping to be able to summon spirits to check for the culprits. After the incident, Emily's parents didn't want to bury her because they wanted to wait for the police to catch the culprits so that their daughter could rest in peace before planning her burial. But as time passed and the police couldn't solve the case, Emily's body began to show signs of decomposition, forcing them to consider burying her as soon as possible. Before the burial, her parents wanted to use the power of ghosts and gods to help their daughter take revenge. According to ancient beliefs, if the deceased is buried in red clothes, their resentment will deepen and they can become evil spirits. Then they will come to those who killed them for revenge. But the elders of the Johnson family did not approve of this. If buried in red clothes, Emily might not be able to reincarnate. Her soul could only wander in the mortal world until it dissipated. After careful consideration, her parents abandoned the idea of dressing their daughter in red clothes. In May 1987, 1 month after the incident occurred, the family buried Emily normally. Afterwards, a local newspaper unexpectedly received an anonymous letter. The appearance of the letter seemed to open a new turning point in the investigation of the case. The words in the letter were all handwritten. The writer claimed that he was the culprit who had acted against Emily. Moreover, when the police were examining the crime scene on the day of the incident, he was in the crowd and watched with everyone. When he saw the severity of the investigation, there was a moment when he wanted to surrender, but didn't have enough courage, so he gave up. He admitted that he had a mental illness and couldn't control himself in a weak state, so he acted on Emily's life. He felt very guilty after doing such a barbaric thing. At the end of the letter, the writer also made a promise that if the public forgave him, he would turn himself in. Sometime later, the newspaper received a second anonymous letter. The letter was also handwritten and had handwriting similar to the exclusive letter. The letter writer claimed that he was the culprit of the case. He was the only one from beginning to end, not 8 people as the police had speculated. The tooth marks on Emily's body were all left by him. The police had investigated wrongly. Not long after, the newspaper received a third anonymous letter. In the letter, the writer even vaguely demanded that the Kuala Lumpur police prepare 300,000 ringgit, about 70,000 USD, to transfer his residence. After receiving the money, he would turn himself in. If not, the case would never be solved. He even threatened that if he didn't receive the money, he would continue to do evil things, and many children would have the same fate as Emily. Some people said that the letter writer was becoming increasingly arrogant. He not only demanded money, but also threatened the safety of others. People were extremely angry about this and vowed to find the person who wrote those letters and punish him, whether he was the real culprit or not. After that, the letter writer may have been frightened by the public's indignation. He switched to writing letters in English and sent them to some local newspapers. The writer explained that the previous letters were all fabricated by him with evil intentions. He acted like that because he was dissatisfied with the local newspaper constantly exaggerating the case. He hoped people could give him a chance to correct himself and stop looking for him. Because the anonymous letters did not leave any clues, after investigation, the police also had no further results. The letter writer also kept his promise not to send new letters to newspapers. After that, the issue was left alone. The police also conducted more investigations into the case, but did not obtain any valuable clues. The mood of local people also changed from initial anger to fear of the killer hiding in the crowd. During that time, everyone was very scared to let their children go out alone. As time passed, the case was gradually forgotten. By 2009, 22 years after the incident occurred, the culprit was still at large. But someone mentioned the case again. People involved were interviewed again. The Johnson family initially lived on Jalan Street, but a few years ago, they had moved elsewhere and were still running a bakute shop. Most people living on Jalan Street still remembered Emily's tragic incident. Whenever they thought about it, everyone was filled with indignation. Everyone felt very sorry that they couldn't bring justice to the little girl. For them, although Emily was not their own child, they had witnessed her grow up. The heartbreaking incident had become a thorn in everyone's heart. The police investigating the case at that time also said that investigating the crime scene was very important and key to solving the case. Ordinary people should not arbitrarily enter the crime scene lest they destroy evidence on the spot. Before the police received the call and arrived at the scene, there were many curious residents who had come in and out to check, which caused important evidence to be destroyed. Based on the method of crime, psychologists believe that the culprit committed the crime due to abnormal psychology or for revenge. He used brutal methods to cause pain to the victim during the act. The culprit may have committed the crime arbitrarily, with the purpose of taking revenge on society. After many years of investigation, the culprit has still not been found. The entire Johnson family has lost hope about the case. Michael, the older brother who left his sister to buy bread, has always blamed himself for his sister's tragic death. In 1999, 12 years after the incident, he passed away at the age of 22 due to liver disease. He lived his whole life in pain and deep regret for losing his sister. The mother once again tasted the pain of losing a child, washing her face with tears every day. In 2009, in an interview, the mother said that she hoped people would not forget about the case because the culprit had not yet been caught. As for the father, the tragic image of his daughter is still deeply imprinted in his memory. Whenever he recalls small details about his daughter, he becomes so sad that he cannot speak. He said that, although the culprit has not been found, for 22 years he has not blamed anyone because the police and well-intentioned people from all walks of life have done their best. He is very grateful to those who tried to find the culprit. He organized charity Bakutha sales to raise funds and offer rewards for anyone who could provide useful information, but ultimately did not get results. Afterwards, he donated all the money raised from charity sales to schools. Now more than 30 years have passed. If Emily were still alive, she would be over 40. But her life was forever fixed at the age of 9. As for the culprit, unless he turns himself in, there is very little hope of solving the case. He may be the one who wrote those anonymous letters, or maybe not. We cannot know that. Today's video ends here, and I'll see you in the next videos. Goodbye.